All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here, talking real music in real time for a few real people out there, just like you and just like me. So, Journey has just dropped a music video for a song they had released a little while back. The song is one of the better songs from their new record, which hasn't been released yet. I believe comes out on July the 8th. The album's called Freedom. The song in question here is called You Got the Best of Me. And it's a really good song. And the video is kind of like a black and white performance video. And it showcases the band's live performance as of late. They're looking and sounding great. Arnel Pineda is really just being himself rather than trying to imitate someone. It's impossible, by the way, to imitate Steve Perry completely. And everybody who has tried basically admits that, hey, there's only one Steve Perry. It's kind of a obvious thing. You're not going to be able to replace Steve Perry. Like I say, Arnel is there to help fans cope with the fact that Steve Perry isn't there. And quite honestly, during this tour, I think he's done a spectacular job. But this new video to me is another attempt by Journey to kind of break through with new stuff, right? Last year, they had The Way We Used to Be. John Cain said fairly recently that he was somewhat disappointed that the song didn't get a better reception. And I think he was implying that, hey, radio stations, what are you guys waiting for? Now, where do you put Journey? This is the problem. You can play as much old Journey as you want to on a classic rock station, classic hits, 80s nostalgia station, whatever it is out there that has been approved by the corporation, to say, hey, these songs are okay. And yeah, if you do an interview with Jonathan Cain and you want to come out of the break or out of the interview with one of the new songs, fine, but just don't ever play it again. Just play it that one time. And it's really depressing because a band like this with their catalog, think of what I'm going to say here. This is kind of interesting. So Journey's catalog is very important to all of these classic rock radio stations because without it, those stations wouldn't be as popular because people want to hear Don't Stop Believin' 5 times a day. They want to hear Separate Ways 3 times a day. They'd like to hear Who's Crying Now maybe twice a day. You know what I mean? So the programmers, and again, I'm talking about the 5 or 6 corporations that pretty much run everything. They rely on catalogs from classic bands to make their radio stations great. So why not pay tribute to these bands, or at least say, you know what, for all you've done over the years, we're going to give your new song a chance. We're going to put your new song on and see how people react to it. The problem is, I don't think they do metrics like that anymore. In other words, people aren't going to call the radio station and say, hey, what is that? They're just not going to do it. I mean, maybe a couple of people will do it, but when it comes to this music, this older stuff, and these older bands, rather, who have new material out there, I guess it's just, people aren't as interested. And you can tell this when you go to a concert, and I went to see Journey recently, and even songs that were really well known in the 80s, a lot of people were heading to the bathroom or the concession stand or whatever during that song, whatever that song was. And I would sit there and go, well, this is kind of weird. I mean, all of these songs aren't really adventurous. In other words, pretty much everything they did, there were a couple of exceptions. They did pull out Dead or Alive, which really shocked me. And I think a lot of people were really unsure, unless you had the Escape album and you listened to it from start to finish, some of those people just sat there and I think looked a little confused, but everybody else who was hardcore was like, yeah, this is a good song for them to play. But we're in an era now where some of those details are basically fading. Like people forget what rock stations used to play years ago. If you go back through the archives and you just read a little bit, like what was on the radio in 1982 or something, and the list is so comprehensive compared to what they've boiled it down to these days. And Journey continues to try, right? They're running the show themselves. They've gotten away from corporate management. And from what I understand, Neil and John are doing a lot of the planning, a lot of the promoting. They're probably signing off on, videos like this new one here, which I think is a really, again, this song itself is really good. Now, a lot of people have been telling me, this just doesn't sound like the old Journey. And I go, it depends which old Journey you're talking about, because a lot of this has elements of the just when Steve Perry era, like when he joined, and even before Perry joined the band, which a lot of people, they don't even know that Steve Perry wasn't there at the very beginning of Journey. And as an old geezer, I do remember those days because I went back and I really just dove into all this old material, and it was very different from, Escape and Frontiers and Infinity. But there was a progression moving toward that moment when Steve Perry joined the band. Unless this band can harness the power of like a series, for instance, like Stranger Things, right? Now they have Separate Ways in there, a new version of Separate Ways, which Steve Perry signed off on. And now all of a sudden, Kate Bush has become a big deal, Running Up That Hill, and a perfect song for a series like Stranger Things. Not sure Journey has a song on Freedom that would work in a series like Stranger Things. But see, I think the industry owes it to Journey and other bands who have propped up the music world for so long. I think they owe it to say, you know what? We're going to help you guys sell a few albums. We're going to expose people, oh no, wait for it, to new music by the band Journey. And the best way to do it these days is through some kind of video game or some kind of a TikTok viral thing that happens. There's actually a Sirius XM channel, I just found this out, that plays videos or plays music from TikTok videos that go viral. It's just crazy. It's like, yeah, here's a whole channel devoted to something that's just bizarre, that you put together some kind of weird video, kid on a skateboard. I remember this with Fleetwood Mac's Dreams, and it becomes this viral sensation. And then all of a sudden too, it's charting on the current list of top 40 songs because they factor in all of this other airplay, whether it's Spotify or Apple Music or however they're measuring it. It's really bizarro world. I mean, I am old school and, listening to Casey Kasem on Sunday morning, waiting for my prediction to come true or for my prediction to fail. Those were kind of the good old days. Now it's like you've got to use all of the off the grid social media ideas. You can't just say, hey, radio, play my song. I mean, the band in this case has good distribution here in the United States through BMG and through Frontiers in other locations. But guess what? I don't know if anybody is going to invest in developing. You know what I mean? They're not going to say, hey, did you hear that new Journey song? You should add it to your playlist. And I just don't think programmers are going to do it. And it's sad. And each time a band, an older band, releases an album, I'm always rooting for it to kind of crack and break through again, you know. And in this case, fans have waited for 10 plus years for new material from the band Journey. And so far, I think the songs that have come out may not fit the mold of what you're expecting from Journey. But again, this is Neil Sean's band now. Neil and John are working together. Arnell, I don't believe Arnell writes songs, so the lead vocalist isn't really contributing like Steve Perry did, Steve Augeri did, to this songwriting on the new album, unless maybe Arnell did write some material or make some suggestions. We'll find out. I'm not really sure. The point being is that it's a different time. It's a different sound. I think Neil Sean is leaning hard on his past with this group, like the early days of the band, and he wants to cut loose. He's a guitarist who wants to cut loose, and he's going to find ways to do that. And for many Journey fans who are into just the, you know, those standards, if you want to call them that now, they're disappointed. They want to hear more of what they did before, or the other problem is they could care less about what the band is doing now. And that's the real problem. So in any event, I think this is going to be, unfortunately, another failed attempt to break through, maybe at radio, which I don't know where you put Journey. That's the problem. Classic Hit Station won't do it because it's new. Mainstream rock won't do it because it's not heavy enough and not dark enough because it's Journey. They're going to say no way, because mainstream rock stations, they're not playing old Journey. They'll play old Black Sabbath or something like that, but they're not going to play old Journey. It's a new world. The old days in rock radio, you could have mellower stuff next to harder stuff, and everybody would get along. It would all coexist, and it made your format better to listen to. It was more accessible. It wasn't always angry and dark, because you need a little bit of light in there as well. And Journey is one of those light bands. They're not a dark band for the most part. All right, people. That's my take on this. I could be wrong. I'm often wrong, and people will call me out and say, you're wrong. And I'll say, okay, it's just my opinion. You don't have to agree with it. In any event, thanks to all the patrons who stuck with me and kept going into the month of June. If you want to become a patron, you can do so for $1 a month. I always say this, if like, I don't know, 10% of the subscribers, 5% of the subscribers decided to give $1 a month, who knows what could happen on this channel. I mean, I would have the freedom to kind of branch out and do other types of videos, maybe on other platforms, if I didn't have to worry about certain things happening, you know, censorship and so forth. But you really need to be in a place where there's such a large group of supporters that you can do and say anything, because you could go anywhere and make videos. So in any event, in case you didn't know, all the videos that I do here on YouTube actually are posted over on a platform called Odyssey. So just in case, you know, you can't get on YouTube for some crazy reason, you can see these videos on Odyssey, and I appreciate all the support. If you want, don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. And again, Patreon you can do for as little as $1 a month. And as always, it's much appreciated.